Hi, this is I Bring It Every Day, and my name is Kelly, and I want to talk a little bit about Black Friday. So, let's talk about Black Friday. Now, I have a mixed feeling about this day. Black Friday has become a shopping, or at least the beginning of the Christmas shopping season, or the holiday shopping season. And I used to be a fan of this, but I think over time, I've discovered that I am not as much of a fan, and I'll tell you why. Okay. So, as a reformed shopping person or shopping addict, I won't even say an addict, but as somebody who used to enjoy shopping a lot, I really have faced this Black Friday in quite a different way than I did when I was quite a bit younger. All right, so just a little history of the Black Friday holiday. Now, originally, it was started in Philadelphia. The name Black Friday. Well, one of the more recent things. It started in Philadelphia, and Philadelphia has the Army Navy football game, which is like a really big deal. And it was always right after Thanksgiving, and a lot of people in town would come in town from other areas, and it would get very crowded downtown until the police would say, "Hey," they would call it Black Friday because they would have to call in extra help, work extra hours to manage all the crowds. Anyway, one of the things that I think I've noticed is that a lot of people have really taken to a lot of the negative aspects of it. And one of which is, they have these, what I would call sales, where they mark down, certain items, and then people kind of rush to try to go get them. Now, the negative part of that is, and you remember like reading articles probably about 5, 10 years ago, where a lot of people in these discount stores were running each other over to get in, to get to these sales and get to these deals. And, people were fighting over TVs and things like that. And that's the negative aspect of it. Now, but I understand, like looking at it from both sides, I do understand the need that people need to save funds. And especially now that a lot of people are being laid off, and that, whether it's, corporations and then governmental agencies and government, uh, people are getting laid off, and at very high levels and low levels. I mean, everybody, it just seems like a lot of people really aren't working, to their abilities or to their expenses. So hence, you're going to get a lot of people that are going to head out and try to get these discount deals. And in fact, this morning, we had driven by a shopping center that had a discount store, and it was 7 a.m. and it was packed. And and literally, because it's a rural shopping center, it was from the outside of the building all the way to the end of the road was packed. So that's a little bit concerning. Now for the economists in the United States will say, "Oh, that's great. That means that people are coming out and spending." But I've never been a fan of the consumer economy, because that's kind of what we have in the United States. We barely make anything here. You know. So that being said, people going out and shopping is going to take care of the consumer economy. But in reality, what do we make? What do we sell to other countries? Very little. So that's just something to think about. So, but then like I said, but because of the fighting in previous stores, you saw that people were fighting over items. That's terrible. And I think this whole concept just makes people a little bit crazy. And so that's the part of it that I don't like. So I would just challenge people, just try to do the best you can along the way, and then you don't have to rush out. And also, the other thing too that I recognize is that this holiday shopping really puts people in a mindset that they feel like they have to present this image of spending a lot of money on their children and their relatives and things like that. And when in reality, a lot of people in the United States really are blessed, and they really don't need anything. I mean, they may want things, but in reality, a lot of people are doing okay. They've got food, clothing, housing. May not be great, but they have food, clothing, and housing. And they don't need, how many like large screen TVs do you need? That's a question, I'd like to just throw out there to people. Like I said, I understand, the shopping aspect of it. I understand the economic aspect of it, but I don't agree with the fact that we have a consumer economy. And let me know what you think in the comments. And and also, you have to realize too, there are a lot of boycotts that are happening, and people know why. And you got to realize, when these people, these large corporations, they have to realize like how they treat people, has a way of coming back to hit them, you know. And people, when they're smart, they're going to take their money where they're going to be well treated. And I say that's what people should do. And actually, if you can, I really think that people should support those small businesses because they need a leg up. You know, these $1 billion companies really. I mean, not saying they don't need us, but honestly, they're going to be fine. They were fine during the pandemic. They're fine. They were fine before the pandemic. They were fine during the pandemic, and they're fine after the pandemic. But the small businesses are the ones that really need support. So anyway, that's my rant, or not rant, but that's what I've been thinking about. With Black Friday, and I just hope that people don't fall for the hype. Don't believe the hype. Shout out to Public Enemy. All right, so it's I Bring It Every Day. Thanks for listening, and let me know what you think in the comments. All right, peace.